How did you get interested in writing?
I became interested in writing when I was a graduate student. Coming from a different country and a completely different educational system, I was challenged by all the writing assignments that I had to complete in my coursework. And even though I knew English well enough, I was not at all confident in my academic writing skills. I was eagerly waiting for the feedback from my professors, and I came to realize that the way I was taught to write in my own language was drastically different from the kind of writing expected here. For example, back in school, my teachers always emphasized that the main idea has to be developed gradually, with details that are described using complex sentences and abundant stylistic devices like metaphor, hyponymy, hyperbole, and so on. So I learned to write very long, complex sentences and to use flowery language. Well, I came to realize that in English, the readers have completely different expectations. They want to see the main idea at the very beginning, and they expect carefully organized details to support the idea. And I also realized that flowery metaphorical language is not really appropriate in academic writing. I should say that I learned a lot about writing through teaching when I was a teaching assistant in graduate and undergraduate writing courses. Since the approach to writing was so different from what I knew, I spent a lot of time preparing for class, and I learned together with my students. In fact, I often completed the tasks that I planned to assign to my students myself first, trying to see whether and what I would learn from that. And putting myself in my students' shoes gave me a really good understanding of both the writing conventions and how to best teach them. The thing that keeps me most interested in writing is the importance of knowing how to write for specific purposes and for specific audiences. For instance, the purpose of writing an expository essay, which is often assigned to undergraduate students, is to explain an idea or an issue, and the immediate audience is typically the teacher and other classmates. So students follow very specific assignment guidelines provided by the teacher. On the other hand, the purpose of a research article that a graduate student prepares for publication is completely different. In this case, the audience is a broad disciplinary community who the student doesn't even know. But the members of this disciplinary community have high and very specific expectations of how a research argument should be presented in a journal manuscript.
Professor Kotos noticed that the way she learned to write in her own language was very different than the way she needed to write when she started writing in English. She noticed that in her own language, they use flowery language, they develop ideas gradually, and they use long, complex sentences. She noticed that in English, this style and process doesn't work. Professor Kotos thinks that writing is interesting because of the fact that in order to be successful, the writer has to choose the right language depending on the purpose and the audience for the writing. She noticed that there's not one correct way to write in English, but instead there are a lot of choices to